Title: Masterclass, Podcast Sponsorships and Ad Placements. Introduction: Podcast sponsorships and ad placements have become a popular and effective method for businesses to reach their target audience through audio content. In this masterclass, we will explore the strategies and best practices for executing successful podcast sponsorships and ad placements. We will cover the following key topics: understanding the podcast landscape. Gain a comprehensive understanding of the podcast landscape, including the different podcast genres, popular platforms, and audience demographics. Familiarize yourself with the types of podcast sponsorships and ad placements available, such as pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, and host-read ads. Defining objectives and target audience. Define clear objectives for your podcast sponsorship or ad campaign. Determine what you want to achieve, such as brand awareness, lead generation, or product promotion. Identify your target audience and select podcasts that align with their interests, values, and demographics. Researching and selecting podcasts. Conduct thorough research to identify podcasts that are relevant to your target audience and industry. Consider factors such as podcast popularity, listener engagement, host credibility, and audience demographics. Evaluate past episodes, audience size, and listener feedback to ensure a good fit for your brand. Building relationships with podcasters. Establish relationships with podcasters by reaching out to them directly or through podcast networks and agencies. Craft personalized pitches that highlight the value your brand can bring to their audience. Develop mutually beneficial partnerships and negotiate sponsorship terms that align with your budget and campaign objectives. Crafting compelling advertisements. Create compelling and engaging ad scripts that resonate with the podcast's audience. Ensure that the messaging aligns with your brand voice and the podcast's content style. Consider incorporating storytelling techniques, humor, or personal anecdotes to capture listeners' attention and create a memorable impression. Leveraging host-read ads. Host-read ads, where the podcast host personally endorses the product or service, are highly effective in establishing trust and credibility with the audience. Provide key talking points to the host while allowing them the freedom to add their personal touch. Encourage the host to share their own experiences with the product to enhance authenticity. Optimizing ad placement. Strategically determine the placement of your podcast ads to maximize their impact. Pre-roll ads play before the podcast episode, mid-roll ads are inserted during the episode, and post-roll ads are placed at the end. Consider the flow of the podcast and the listener's engagement to select the most effective ad placement. Tracking and measuring performance. Implement tracking mechanisms to measure the performance of your podcast sponsorships and ad placements. Utilize unique promo codes, custom landing pages, or dedicated URLs to track conversions and ROI. Leverage podcast analytics and listener surveys to gather insights on ad recall, brand awareness, and audience engagement. Monitoring and adjusting campaigns. Regularly monitor the performance of your podcast sponsorships and ad campaigns. Analyze data and metrics to identify trends, strengths, and areas for improvement. Adjust your strategies and ad placements based on the performance data to optimize your campaign's effectiveness. Scaling and expanding sponsorships. Once you have established successful podcast sponsorships, consider scaling and expanding your efforts. Explore opportunities to collaborate with multiple podcasts or extend your sponsorship duration. Develop long-term relationships with podcasters to build brand loyalty and maximize the impact of your sponsorships. Conclusion: podcast sponsorships and ad placements provide a unique opportunity to reach and engage target audiences through audio content. By understanding the podcast landscape, defining clear objectives, selecting relevant podcasts, crafting compelling advertisements, and tracking performance, you can execute successful podcast sponsorships and ad campaigns. Embrace the power of podcasting as an effective marketing channel. And leverage the influence of podcast hosts to connect with listeners and drive meaningful results for your brand. Remember to prioritize building relationships with podcasters and creating authentic and engaging ad content. Leverage the host's credibility and connection with their audience to establish trust and increase ad effectiveness. Strategically select the placement of your ads to capture listeners' attention and optimize engagement. Track and measure the performance of your podcast sponsorships and ad placements using unique promo codes, custom landing pages, or dedicated URLs. Analyze the data and metrics to gain insights into ad recall, brand awareness, and audience engagement. Use this information to refine and optimize your campaigns for better results. Monitor the performance of your campaigns regularly and be prepared to make adjustments when necessary. Stay proactive and responsive to the data, making informed decisions to improve your strategies and maximize the impact of your podcast sponsorships. As your podcast sponsorships gain traction and success, consider scaling and expanding your efforts. Explore opportunities to collaborate with multiple podcasts or extend your sponsorship duration. Build long-term relationships with podcasters to foster brand loyalty and unlock further growth potential. In conclusion, podcast sponsorships and ad placements offer a valuable avenue for reaching and engaging target audiences. By understanding the podcast landscape, setting clear objectives, selecting relevant podcasts, crafting compelling ads, tracking performance, and adjusting your strategies as needed, you can execute successful podcast sponsorships and ad campaigns. Embrace the power of podcasting as a marketing channel and leverage the influence of podcast hosts to connect with listeners, drive brand awareness, and achieve your marketing goals.